Started last year, Bitcoin was at 40. We said it was going to go to 80. Now we're in the 90s when we record this. I think Bitcoin will end the year at 200,000. I think it's going to double again next year. And I think if we get a US government strategic reserve that actually buys or is on pace to buy $1 million Bitcoin, then I think that too could be 4 or 5. I think it could be really substantial. But do I think there'll be a 30+% pullback sometime in the next couple of years? Absolutely. A 50% plus pullback? Possibly. Bitcoin ETFs will attract more inflows in 2025 than they did in 2024.
Matt Hougan begins by reflecting on 2024 as an incredible year for cryptocurrency, but he quickly shifts his focus to the future. He believes 2025 will be even more exciting, forecasting all-time highs for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. According to Hougan, this bullish sentiment stems from several factors, including institutional interest, government participation, and the sustained popularity of Bitcoin ETF. Hougan doesn't shy away from giving precise price targets. He predicts Bitcoin will reach $200,000 by the end of 2025, doubling its price from the previous year. He even entertains the possibility of Bitcoin exceeding this value if the U.S. government establishes a strategic Bitcoin reserve, a move he deems feasible, albeit with a 25 to 30% probability. Should this happen, Bitcoin's value could soar to $1 million or more.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
In Bitcoin specifically, how much Bitcoin are ETFs going to buy? How much are corporations going to buy? How much are governments going to buy? Where is the sale process going to come from? And in broader crypto, is the growth of throughput real? Are there really interesting real-world games and applications being built? And I just kept coming up with yes. So yeah, I exited even more bullish. I loved 2024. What an incredible year. But I think 2025 may actually be even more exciting. My first prediction is that the Magnificent Three, Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana, are each going to make all-time highs in 2025. I think Coinbase equity will as well, to bring in our TradFi allocation to crypto. I think Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana are all going up and going up substantially. I know before this, you asked me if I would do price targets. I'm willing to do price targets.
Okay.
It started last year. Bitcoin was at 40. We said it was going to go to 80. Now we're in the 90s when we record this. I think Bitcoin will end the year at 200,000. I think it's going to double again next year. And I think if we get a US government strategic reserve that actually buys or is on pace to buy $1 million Bitcoin, then I think that too could be 4 or 5. I think it could be really substantial. I think the probability of the US not selling the 200,000 Bitcoin it has is very high, 80, 90%. I think the probability of it agreeing to acquire another million is probably something like a third or a quarter, which is not zero, right? It's not zero. It's not zero at all. But the reason our forecast is 200K is because that assumes that doesn't happen, right? So certainly the last few weeks have taught us a lot of crazy stuff could happen. I think it's, 25% or 30% chance is pretty good, considering you're talking about something that will ultimately drive Bitcoin's price to $1 million or more. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's the most likely scenario. I think the reason for the 4-year cycle is similar to what you said, but it's just the same reason there's a business cycle, which is you have a pullback and then there's a fundamental reason the thing recovers, and then eventually it gets over levered and that leverage gets washed out of the system and you reset. Do I think we'll see the Bitcoin and crypto market get overhyped and too much leverage built into the system and have that washed out and reset? I do. So I don't think we've repealed the cycle. Will it be 4 years is a good question. I think that's incidental. I don't think there's so no, I have low confidence that it will be precisely 4 years, but do I think there'll be a 30+% pullback sometime in the next couple of years? Absolutely. A 50% plus pullback? Possibly, right? So I think that will still happen. I do think it'll be diminished. I think it'll be diminished because there are many more actors in the crypto market. There's a lot of money that needs to come into this space, and we've sort of repealed the chance of it going to zero. So I think part of the reason it pulled back so far is that a lot of people were worried, well, maybe it'll go to zero. And so they didn't step in when the market pulled back. I think that's over. So I would say we'll still have a cycle. Whether it's 4 or 5 years, I don't know. And I think it'll be less pronounced than in the past. But, we haven't repealed bear markets. Bitcoin ETFs will attract more inflows in 2025 than they did in 2024. Obviously,
wow.
I feel really strongly about this one. So I think there's such a success, Bitcoin ETFs, right? They've pulled in, we don't know the full numbers, but call it $30+ billion, the most ever of any ETF. And I think there's this assumption that there is this pent up demand and it's now been taken care of. And now we're going to see like a few $1 billion. But there's no reason to assume this is true. Let me give you the counterfactuals. The first is that in ETF land, year one is always the slowest. If you look at any ETF, it grows the most in year one, or it goes a little bit in year one, and year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 grow substantially beyond that. That's what happened with gold, what's happened with almost every ETF ever. So that's a big piece of it. The second counterfactual is that the Bitcoin ETFs aren't even approved on the largest wealth management platforms. They have partial approval on Morgan Stanley. They're not yet approved on Wells Fargo or UBS or others. There's trillions of dollars that can't even buy them yet. And then the third is that, look, institutions just move slow. So far, many of the adopters of crypto ETPs have been retail, and I think institutions are starting to come on board. And I think they're going to accelerate substantially in 2025. So yeah, we think $30 billion is a down payment. We think it may be more like 40, 50 in the year to come.
One of Hougan's most intriguing predictions involves the potential for 401k plans to include crypto investments. He highlights a 2022 Department of Labor directive that discouraged such inclusion, citing extreme caution. Hougan views this as a major missed opportunity given the $8 trillion locked in 401k plans. If regulatory hurdles are cleared, allowing even a small portion of these funds to flow into crypto, it could provide a consistent bid for assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, stabilizing the market and driving adoption.
Governments, corporations, and ETFs will purchase more than 1 million Bitcoin in 2025. We talked about looking at, why will Bitcoin go to 200,000? I talked about re-underwriting my thesis in the space. As I look at these three sort of drivers of massive Bitcoin demand, it's just hard to see how it doesn't happen. I mean, Michael Saylor bought 200,000 Bitcoin himself last year, and he plans to accelerate that in the new year. The reason I like this framing is that for people who are skeptical of this space, I try to point them at a few simple supply-demand metrics. We know next year that the Bitcoin network will produce 160,000 Bitcoin. Do you think ETFs, which bought 400+ thousand Bitcoin, will buy more or fewer next year? I think they'll buy more. Do you think corporations, which bought another 300,000 or 400,000 Bitcoin, will buy more or fewer next year? Well, not only is Saylor ramping up, but every day there's a new company that announces it's adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. I think it's more. Do we think governments, which were sellers of Bitcoin last year with the German government cashing out, the US threatening to, do we think they will be positive or negative? I think they'll be positive. And then you look at that, you get to 1 million Bitcoin on one side of the ledger and 160,000 on the other side. You say, where is the other 840,000 going to come from? And the answer is higher prices. And so I like it because it breaks down the source of demand. And I think it's hard to be bearish if you think about it that way. The Department of Labor will relax rules allowing crypto into 401k plans, paving the way for significant flows. Everyone with this new administration coming in has their pet project that they want to see a regulatory 180 on. Maybe it's market structure, maybe it's stablecoins, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. For me, it's this obscure note that the Department of Labor put out in 2022 warning 401k plans to not allow crypto into their investment portfolios or they would face audit. I think the word they used was extreme caution. I've never seen anything like it. Why does it matter? It matters because there's something like $8 trillion in 401k plans, which can't currently access crypto. And additionally, every month, millions of Americans save money into their 401k plans. I would love a portion of that to come into the crypto market. I would love it because I believe in crypto's ability to improve the long-term returns of diversified portfolios. And I would love it because it would give a persistent bid to these assets and actually contribute to reducing the volatility of the space. So will it happen? I don't know, but I would love to see it happen, and I think it might. And I think if it does, I actually think it's a pretty big deal for crypto. There's a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve buying 1 million Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance will continue. That's just an overwhelming factor that will reverse that aspect. Absent that, I'm a big believer in human psychology. I think the driver of the sort of altcoin season is a classic wealth effect, which is crypto gets rich on Bitcoin and then has extra money and they look for other things. I don't think we've repealed human psychology, so I suspect that that will continue to happen. But again, if you have this exogenous event of strategic Bitcoin reserve, the Bitcoin Act, then that's out the window. Absolutely massive. I mean, they're an incredible killer app. They're a US bank account and a US financial quality ecosystem everywhere in the world at the push of a button, right? I mean, that is just amazing. And you can see the sort of early adopters doing it. You can look into countries with high inflation rates, see the stablecoin adoption there. You can look into regions with difficult B2B payment networks like Sub-Saharan Africa, and you can see what Yellow Card is doing there, right? The proof is in the pudding. It's not speculative use. This is, end real world use. Yeah, it's a multi-trillion-dollar space if the regulators don't muck it up.
Stablecoins are another area of interest for Hougan. He cites their adoption in countries with high inflation and regions with inefficient payment networks as evidence of their utility. Stablecoins, he argues, are not speculative assets but practical tools for everyday transactions. If regulators maintain a supportive stance, stablecoins could become a multi-trillion-dollar market, further legitimizing the crypto industry.
Please like and subscribe my channel.